March the 6th. It is 3:23 p.m. And on this Sunday, I wanted to talk about not having any limits when it comes to astral projection. But let me start by just saying I wanted to very quickly mention that I finally finished the first season of Nawi of the Lightning Tribe. And as difficult as it was to complete, it was the most satisfying work I've ever done. Thank you to all of those folks that have listened to the podcast. And for those that haven't and might be interested, I'll be leaving a link to Nawi below. So anyway, today I'd like to pass along a lesson that I learned from my dear mother. I have learned many, many things from Mom, but this was in regards to astral projection and also the beyond body. This was a very, very important lesson that I learned from her. And the lesson is not to ever limit yourself when it comes to these things. Now, what do I mean by limiting yourself? I'll use my own experience with the beyond body as an example, especially my very early experiences. Now, for those of you who have been on this channel for a while, I've talked about some of the earlier experiences I had with the beyond body, where I would close my eyes and I would start to see things. This started really happening to me after my accident. After I'd had the accident, which for those of you who are just coming in and haven't listened, I have videos about a very, very, very bad accident that I had in 2015 that basically changed my life, made it so that I had to walk with a cane, actually almost took my life. But I can remember being in the hospital and being in rehab at times, but this was mostly in the hospital that I remember at first, where I would shut my eyes if I were tired and I would start to see things. Things like cities or oceans or highway on-ramps. I've seen that before. I remember one of the first things I saw was I'd shut my eyes and I would be as consciousness just moving towards this freeway on-ramp, and I don't remember necessarily seeing cars, but the landscape, the architecture all looked different. This is just an example of something I was seeing, and it was interesting because it wasn't like I was there. It was like I was looking through a window and I was observing these things, and I was confused. Of course, before that time, I had been doing astral projection. And to me, astral projection was a very straightforward thing. I mean, I'd been able to do it since I was a small child. I knew pretty much how it worked. I knew that it didn't happen every single night for me, but at times I was able to reach that middle space. I would leave my body and that was it. But I knew that this was not like astral projection, because back then I wouldn't just shut my eyes and start to see stuff, even if I was tired. Back then, it would take a while for me to reach that middle space. And then once I reached that middle space, I could either roll out of my body or I would float upwards out of my body. So I knew that this was something brand new. And when I came home from the hospital, when I was at my house, I thought, well, you know, I don't know what this was. Maybe they were giving me some kind of drugs because they were pumping me full of drugs at the time. And when I got home, I stopped with any of that stuff, any of the painkillers or whatever I was on. And this stuff continued. It became more and more intense as I was more distant from the drugs. So I didn't believe it was that, because the further I got from taking any of that stuff, the more intense these things became. Now, at one point, I started becoming at times a part, or I felt as if I was a part of what I was seeing. So in other words, at first I was observing almost like I was watching a television show or a movie. Then suddenly I was becoming a part of this television show or movie. And I remember I was speaking to my mom about it, because I honestly thought I was going crazy. Thankfully I have the mother that I have, but I would have sworn to you, because anyone who knows me, you can kind of get to know someone a bit through YouTube, at least an aspect of who they are, but I don't know that you can totally get to know a person. You're only seeing a certain side of them when you are watching their channel. For me, if you knew all sides of who I was, you would know that I am the kind of person that would be skeptical and would be in disbelief about something. I've always been a very rational being about things, very practical about things. And again, astral projection for me was a very practical thing. I'd been experiencing it consistently since I was a kid. And now this new thing, this wasn't something that I recognized at all. But I remember telling my mom, I said, Mom, I think it could be, maybe I'm seeing past life type stuff. Maybe that's what this is. I'm seeing a past life, and this was me. I remember at first I would see myself as a young kid, and I was looking through the eyes of a young kid. Once I was on this sidewalk, and there were all these legs walking past me, and I was looking up, and I was in this downtown area. And so that was one experience. And another experience, I was in the back of a station wagon, and I was leaving a motel, I think. I was looking out the back of the window. I was with my family, whoever that family was. I didn't really get to know them in that moment, but I was watching as we were pulling away from this motel, and I could see people jumping in the pool, and I could see the sign that said motel. It was very old, looked like it was back in the 60s. So I assumed that, this must be some kind of past life thing. And my mom said, in that moment, she told me, she said, look, you were saying that this is what this is. The second you define it, the second you say, this is what this is, then you have limited yourself. You are putting yourself into a box. You are saying, this is what this is, and it's nothing else. You are experiencing a past life, and there's nothing else to it. And once you do that, you may not get an opportunity to see if there's more to it. And so from that point on, I stopped defining these experiences as saying, this is what this is. I started looking at it more or less as a person who was exploring and saying, this is an interesting thing that I'm seeing, but I don't know that I quite even know what this is. But of course I was pointing out the things that I actually saw, and just kind of keeping my mind open and saying, well, let's see what happens the next time. And because of that, the experiences have become more and more intense and more clear. And I have gone and visited places that I couldn't possibly have imagined. So my mind continues to be open, guys, because I am continuing to discover things like this thing of being able to see these things, looking through this window, if you will, and touching something with my hand or my mind. I'm thinking that I'm touching it with my hand, but I'm really touching it with my mind, I believe. And then once I touch it, once I put my hands on it, suddenly I'm there. Now, I couldn't have imagined that this would be something I could do before, because I always traveled by movement. I would travel left, I'd go right. But nowadays, I can close my eyes. I begin to see this place just as an observer, and then I touch it and I'm a part of it. So again, this comes from not limiting myself. Now, how can this help you in your astral projection experience? Because I know that that's what a lot of you are interested in, and I know that there are a lot of you that may be struggling with this. And the way that this helps you in your own experience, in your own journey, is by not limiting yourself from the very, very beginning. And what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, you are on the subreddit, okay, and you are, looking at different people's experiences. And then you start to think to yourself, well, why aren't I feeling these same things that these people are feeling? When people talk about, for example, the vibrations, why aren't I feeling that? Why don't I feel this same thing? Well, if I don't feel this same thing, then that means that it isn't going to happen for me, or it's not happening for me. People are different. People are going to feel different things. It's very important that when you read those experiences, yes, you can use them as inspiration, but don't think to yourself that this is what I have to feel in order to astral project. You may not feel anything. You may suddenly close your eyes, right? Or close your eyes, and then suddenly you may find yourself out of your body without having felt a thing. You may just be walking around thinking to yourself, what happened? I didn't feel the vibrations. I didn't even feel separation. But, I'm looking at my body. There it is, right here. And I can do all of these things. I can float in the air. I can fly. I can walk through walls. Guys, don't limit yourself. Keep your mind open. Always keep your mind open when it comes to this stuff. I see people, again, going back to the subreddit, I see people all the time saying, this is what this is. This is, they define something and say, this is the only way you can reach, let's say, for example, this is the only way you can reach, the astral plane. You have to do A, B, and C. That is limiting yourself. This, I don't believe, is a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Everyone is unique, and everyone is going to have their own unique journey. Anyway, I hope this talk was helpful. Again, I am here to not only share my journeys with you, but to inspire. That is my only desire. That is part of the reason why I was guided to do this. Thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. And until next time, take care.